The first trailer for Denis Villeneuve's Dune is here, and it's full of Dune lore. Let's break it down scene by scene. Naturally, the first shot is dedicated to Dune's hero, Paul Atreides, heir to House Atreides. Paul is played by Timothee Chalamet. One of the key elements in Dune's story is Paul's prophetic visions. Long before he actually sets foot on Arrakis, he begins to have dreams about the desert planet, and more specifically about a woman he's never met. We see those dreams play out here in brief flashes. Though Paul doesn't know it yet, it's obvious the woman he's seeing is Chani. Chani, the daughter of Arrakis planetologist Liet Kynes, is a critical part of Paul's introduction to Fremen culture. Chani is played by Zendaya. Paul's visions are not enough to help him circumvent the disaster that befalls his family, some moments of which we briefly see here. The story of Dune centers on the complicated political machinations of two great houses, the heroic House Atreides and the villainous House Harkonnen, with the planet Arrakis as the stage. Dune's political system is complicated, and while the galaxy is essentially ruled by an emperor, the emperor is surrounded by other extremely powerful and influential groups who are able to wield just as much, if not more, power and influence. One such group is the Bene Gesserit, an all-female cabal who blend theology and spirituality with socio-economic maneuvering to exert their influence across the galaxy. The Reverend Mother Gaius Mohaim, played by Charlotte Rampling, is an extremely high-ranking Bene Gesserit and the person responsible for training Paul's mother, Lady Jessica. She can be seen here waiting for Paul and her narrating the bulk of the trailer. One of the most famous parts of Dune lore has to be the Gamja bar test of humanity, which Gaius Mohaim gives to Paul. The subject must put their hand inside a box which causes them great physical pain. As this happens and the pain escalates, the Bene Gesserit administering the test holds a Gamja bar, a needle coated with extremely lethal venom, at the subject's throat. If the subject removes their hand from the box or jerks away, the Bene Gesserit will drive the needle into their neck, killing them. The whole process was actually designed to see if a person was human, in that they could ignore their instincts for long enough to hone their awareness and school their mind and body, which the Bene Gesserit believed to be the chief distinction between human and animal. Dune's major inciting moment is the move of House Atreides from their home planet Caladan to the desert planet Arrakis. We see some of that migration here, as well as some establishing shots of Caladan, so you can see just how different it is from their new homeworld. Basically, any shot with water in it throughout the trailer is Caladan. One of the stranger bits of tech in the Dune universe are the personal shields or Holtzman shields that can be projected over a person's body from an emitter usually worn on the belt, though in this trailer both Gurney and Paul wear theirs on their hands. A personal shield acts as a sort of one-man force field, bubbling the wearer in a protective case to help protect them from any potential lethal blows and help with training. We can see a few different times here that the shield seems to flash blue when the blows are blocked and red when blows break through. Paul trains extensively with House Atreides' weapon master Gurney Halleck, played by Josh Brolin. The scene here is likely from the beginning of the story before the family relocates to Arrakis. Gurney is a poet and a musician at heart, but is worried about Paul's safety on their new homeworld, so he's definitely not going easy on him. Duke Leto is, above all else, a noble man who tries to keep the best interests of his family at heart. The move to Arrakis was not an easy decision for him to make, but the potential reward was something he judged to be greater than the risks. We see him contemplating his choices here while the voice of Gaius Mohaim states ominously that he's losing his planet for a new one, and he'll lose that one too. Duke Leto Atreides is portrayed by Oscar Isaac. Paul's mother, the Bene Gesserit Lady Jessica, is Duke Leto's concubine. The two never married for political reasons but remain absolutely faithful to one another. Lady Jessica is played by Rebecca Ferguson. The look and feel of the members of the Bene Gesserit order is something that has changed pretty dramatically across every adaptation of Dune. Here we see Villeneuve's take on them complete with sheer shrouds over their heads and gold ornamental jewelry. Duke Leto's trusted mentat or human computer, Thofir Hawat, is only briefly seen in the trailer carrying a classy little parasol to help block out the harsh Arrakis sun. Duncan, Idaho, played by Jason Momoa, is one of the most skilled fighters serving House Atreides. He was among the first to travel from Caladan to Arrakis in order to scout ahead and see if he could find any inroads with the Fremen. We see him here as he's reunited with the family, especially Paul, who he trains. Stilgar, played by Javier Bardem, is one of the leaders of the Fremen people. We see him here taking the mask off his still suit, a full-body device that repurposes all escaped moisture and bodily fluid, yes, all bodily fluids, into drinkable water. We only briefly see the figureheads of the House Harkonnen in this trailer, a murky over-the-shoulder shot of Baron Vladimir and a moment of Glossu Rabban, apparently surveying his troops. Dr. Wellington Yueh, the chief doctor of House Atreides, is easy to pick out in a crowd thanks to the tattoo on his forehead, which marks him as a person who has undergone Suk conditioning, which in theory prevents him from harming another living person. One of the looming threats the Harkonnens hold above House Atreides is a connection with the Emperor and his elite military force, the Sardaukar. The Sardaukar are raised from birth on a prison planet called Salusa Secundus, which instilled in them not only a natural survival instinct and fierce fighting ability, but a zealous and cult-like religious devotion to the Emperor. Part of the Harkonnen plot against the Atreides involved calling a Sardaukar force to Arrakis to wipe out the house and all who remained loyal to them. We get to watch them landing from their dropships here, aided by their suspender tech which helps them soften their fall. It's the same tech you might recognize from David Lynch's take on Baron Harkonnen, but well, perhaps a bit more accurate to the novel. Duncan gets a featured spot in the trailer showcasing just how great of a fighter he really is.
Let's fight like demons.
As he faces off against the Sardaukar troops. In the novel, Duncan was responsible for rallying House Atreides' only chance to defend themselves, the Fremen, who they believed to be the only fighting force in the galaxy who could come close to holding their own against Sardaukar. Technology in the Duniverse is a strange thing thanks in part to a historical war called the Butlerian Jihad, which took place some 10,000 years prior to the events of the story. The Butlerian Jihad completely pivoted the Dune timeline away from our own in terms of how tech works, and totally reshaped the look and feel of most machines. We can see a Thopter here, the Dune version of a helicopter, obviously modeled after a dragonfly. Paul and Duncan share a brief gesture that looks almost like a salute, but is more likely a sign in House Atreides' battle language. Somewhere between military hand signals and secret code, House Atreides developed their very own system of communication to be used on the battlefield that would be indecipherable to any outsiders. Our first hint of a famous Arrakis sandworm is an aerial shot of one consuming a spice mining craft. In the novel, this is Paul's first ever experience with a sandworm. We only get a brief glimpse of Dr. Kynes, Arrakis' resident planetologist, and the nearest thing the Fremen have to a unifying leader between all tribes. It probably isn't a surprise considering the death and destruction rained down on House Atreides earlier in the trailer that Paul has to eventually find his way to the Fremen to survive. We get a few brief glimpses of how those meetings go. Through the voiceover, we hear part of the famous litany against fear. I must not fear, fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Dune's famous spice, or melange, is only found on Arrakis and mined directly out of the sand. We see Paul take a handful and get a good look at it, glittering between his fingers. Spice apparently smells and tastes a lot like cinnamon. The more you know. Duncan bows at the end of the trailer and greets Paul as My Lord Duke, which probably tells you everything you need to know about how well Duke Leto fares through the Harkonnen scheme and the extermination of his house. The final shot of the trailer is a doozy, featuring Paul coming face to face or face to gaping maw with a giant Shai-Hulud or sandworm. While virtually everyone in the galaxy sees the worms as massive deadly pests, the Fremen see them as divine and have mastered a way to work with them, rather than against them, for survival. This includes a way to ride them and fashion their teeth into holy weapons. Dune hits theaters on December 18th. What did you think of the Dune trailer? What do you think of its cast? Tell us in the comments and subscribe to GameSpot Universe for more movie videos.